The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult, if not impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Thursday, December the 18th, 2025. Your readers today,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Drost. So, opening with the front page, good place to start. Will it snow for Christmas? Chances, as usual, are mixed. Doyle Rice of USA Today writes this article. Will you have a white Christmas? Now that's the annual question snow lovers have as the holiday approaches. Although a white Christmas is virtually certain in some areas, the return of milder air and a storm ahead of the holidays will play a pivotal role in which parts of the Midwest and Northeast will have snow on the ground on Christmas morning, according to AccuWeather. The start of the winter season was remarkably cold and snowy for millions of people this year, according to AccuWeather's lead long-range expert, Paul Pastelok, as he said in an email to USA Today. However, that frigid and stormy pattern is not sticking around for the holidays. More than 45% of America was blanketed in snow in early December. Snow lovers may be left disappointed in many towns this Christmas. Pacific air flowing over the Rockies can warm melting snow in a lot of places right before the holiday, according to Pastelok. Areas with several inches of compact snow on the ground and colder air may luck out and actually experience a white Christmas. A white Christmas is all but certain for snow lovers in parts of the central and northern Rockies in 2025. The higher elevations from Wyoming and Montana down through Utah and Colorado look solidly locked in for a white Christmas, with a 40 to 75% chance of snow on the ground for areas just outside the mountains. Many areas downwind of the Great Lakes and within the typical lake effect snow belts are also expected to see a white Christmas. Some areas in the higher elevations of the Appalachians also have a better chance of snow, especially New England. Cold air may push into the Northeast at times before Christmas, which will help keep snow on the ground in places. It need not snow December 25th to fit the National Weather Service's definition of a white Christmas. There just needs to be at least an inch of snow on the ground. A trace amount of snow does not count. Any snow that develops during the day, however, certainly adds to the Yuletide mood. On average, about 38% of the contiguous 48 states have an inch of snow on the ground on December 25th, which is Christmas Day, according to 21 years of data compiled by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Since 2003, those percentages have varied widely from year to year, from only 17.6% in 2023 to 63% of the contiguous United States in 2009, according to weather.com. Meteorologists say the return of milder air before Christmas will bring a dramatic shift in temperatures for much of the central and eastern United States. First half of the month felt like Christmas time in areas that saw early snow and bitterly cold air, Pastelok said. There was snow on the ground from Texas and Oklahoma to Missouri, Tennessee, and Kentucky during the first week of December. Much of that snow long gone. As of December 16th, 28% of the lower 48 states were snow-covered, according to NOAA. The fresh blanket of snow from the winter storm this past weekend in southern coastal areas of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic could melt away in a lot of places as temperature rises before Christmas. Long-range forecasters say a storm is expected in the days leading up to Christmas, which could bring snow or ice to parts of the Great Lakes and interior Northeast. A storm could bring a fresh burst of snow just in time for Christmas morning. The exact track of the storm will determine which areas could be blanketed in fresh snow and which towns could be soaked by rain instead. At this time, it looks like areas north of Interstate 80 could see some snow. Mostly rain is expected south of Interstate 80. The back end of the storm could bring a few snow showers or flurries to some areas that experienced mostly rain. The nation's fascination with the White Christmas dates back to 1942, when Bing Crosby first crooned the wistful song of the film Holiday Inn. It was written by Irving Berlin, and the lyrics brought out a romanticized image of Christmases past, just like the ones I used to know. A second movie, White Christmas, also with Crosby, arrived in 1954.
America still waits on tariffs inflation. Many expected it by now. Forecasters say little likely. From Daniel Devise of USA Today. Millions of American consumers have been waiting for President Donald Trump's tariffs to spark a dramatic rise in consumer prices, pushing the inflation rate into the red zone. They're still waiting. The annual inflation rate reached 3% in September, its highest mark in months of aggressive tariff hikes by Trump. Forecasters expect roughly 3% inflation again in November, with the data due for release on December the 18th. But many Americans expected tariffs to push inflation much higher. It's a good news story that the economic impact of tariffs is smaller than it seemed like it might be, said Bill Adams, chief economist of Comerica Bank. Back in May, consumers surveyed by the University of Michigan predicted prices would rise 6.6% over the next year. Businesses surveyed by the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia in the third quarter of this year predicted prices would rise 4.7% in the coming year. Those dire predictions hinged on tariffs. Tariffs are taxes, and businesses generally pass at least part of their cost to consumers. When Trump unveiled sweeping tariffs in April, many business leaders braced for a punishing wave of inflation. The magnitude and speed at which these prices are coming to us is somewhat unprecedented in history, said John David Rainey, chief financial officer of Walmart, speaking to the Wall Street Journal in May. 7 months later, it looks like that wave may never break. In a December 10th press conference, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell suggested America has little to fear from tariff inflation in the months to come. Tariff-related inflation should peak in early 2026, Powell said, and the effect shouldn't be big. He also said it should be a couple of tenths of a percentage point, or even less than that. In other words, the Fed chair expects tariffs to barely register in consumer prices next year. A 3% inflation rate is not great. The Fed aims for an inflation target of 2%, but neither is particularly bad. When policymakers speak of an inflation crisis, economists say they're usually talking about an annual rate of 5% to 10% or higher. Is an inflation crisis still possible? How much have tariffs raised prices already? Will tariffs cause more inflation in 2026? Why didn't they cause more inflation this year? Let's take those questions in turn. First, is an inflation crisis still possible? When it comes to inflation, anything is always possible. Yet, in the closing days of this year, few observers expect a spike in consumer prices in 2026. Consumers have calmed their worst inflation fears. The typical shopper now expects prices to rise 3.2% over the next year, according to a November survey by the New York Fed. Economists expect inflation to drift down to 2.6% in 2026, according to a November poll by the National Association for Business Economics. Most economists never feared an inflation crisis. In April, at the peak of the tariff wars, the same NABE survey forecast inflation would reach a comparatively modest 3.4% by the end of 2025. Today, most forecasts range lower. Oxford Economics, for example, projects inflation will ease to 2.2% by the end of 2026, just above the Fed's target. Inflation is already around its peak, said Grace Zuemer, associate economist at Oxford Economics. How much inflation already? So far, tariffs have added about 0.7 percentage points to the U.S. inflation rate, according to a November paper published by the National Bureau of Economic Research. Without tariffs, in other words, September's inflation rate would have been closer to 2% than 3%. That's a pretty big difference, said Alex Jacquez, Chief of Policy and Advocacy at the left-leaning Groundwork Collaborative nonprofit. Viewed another way, Trump's tariffs equate to a tax increase of $1,100 per household in 2025, according to the Nonpartisan Tax Foundation. They'll cost each household another $1,400 next year. The Trump tariffs are the largest tax increase since 1993, according to the Tax Foundation analysis. More inflation in 2026? Many forecasts suggest tariffs will continue to raise prices through the first months of next year, but not by much. Excuse me. Powell, the Fed chair, told reporters on December the 10th that he expects tariff inflation to peak in the first quarter or so of 2026, with little further impact on the inflation rate. Some other economists concur. Inflation from tariffs is still working its way through the supply chain, said Adams of Comerica Bank, and that process is likely to finish reaching the consumer in the first half of next year. Yet Adams predicts the inflation rate will hold steady around 3% during these months. Other forecasters warn, however, that the tariff effect is far from over. Company after company is telling us that they are absorbing most of the price shock from imports still, said Chris Rupke, chief economist at FWD Bonds. But 2026 could be a different story. And why wasn't there more inflation? Some of the dire predictions about tariffs and inflation assumed American consumers would bear the brunt of those taxes. That didn't happen. Only about 20% of Trump's tariffs passed through to consumers, according to the study from the National Bureau of Economic Research. As imported products passed from their country of origin to American retailers to consumers, their impact softened at every stop. Exporters accepted lower prices for products they sold to American manufacturers and merchants, Adams said. China's economy weakened, he said, pushing down prices for Chinese exports. American retailers, for their part, have been either unable or unwilling to pass on the full cost of tariffs to consumers, said Jacques of Groundwork Collaborative, partly from concern about losing their business. Some firms sought cheaper versions of the same products from countries with lower tariffs. Lastly, Trump rolled back some of his own tariffs, blunting their impact on consumers. Between carve-outs, trade deals, and other exclusions, Politico reports roughly half of all U.S. imports now enter the country tariff-free.
The Big Easy's Big Funk. You feel the change. There's a large photograph of the lady in white and covered with feathers. Alexa Fitzpatrick joins the celebration of the beloved holiday tradition, the New Orleans Krampus Parade, known to locals as Nolof, on the streets of the city's famed French Quarter on December 6th. A struggling New Orleans hopes the good times roll again. Trevor Hughes of USA Today writes, "At first glance, Bourbon Street remains as it always was. Tourists clutch cocktails as they totter down the uneven sidewalks in high heels. The shoeshine guys make their bad dad jokes. The brass bands draw crowds, cell phone cameras in hand. The beignets are still piping hot. The frozen margaritas still frosty. But in the quieter areas, things are, well, quieter. On a cool December evening, as raindrops polka-dotted the pavement, longtime street performer Onunze Ubaka, 72 years of age, crooned Motown classics to a virtually empty corner of the usually busy Jackson Square in the French Quarter. Very few tourists passed by. Even fewer stopped to drop dollar bills into his white tip bucket. "You can feel the change," Ubaka said, in between songs from Lou Rawls and the Temptations. Inside his tip bucket, a small pile of greenbacks barely covered the 15-pound dumbbell he started putting in after a young man tried to run off with it. Ubaka said, "There has been a general economic slowdown, in particular, a loss of international tourists." He said the city's broader struggles have not helped either. From the devastating terror attack on January 1st on Bourbon Street to the embarrassing jailbreak of 10 inmates from the Orleans Parish Justice Center last May, followed by the mayor's indictment on federal corruption charges and a surprise city budget shortfall. Now, federal immigration agents are prowling the edges of the city in the high-profile Operation Catahoula Crunch. "I think a lot of that has contributed to the slowdown," Ubaka said. "It's kind of put a damper on things." Although city leaders have been diversifying the local economy, New Orleans depends heavily on tourism, and the shocking terror attack on January 1 that killed 14 people on Bourbon Street started the year on a tragic note. In that attack, Army veteran Shamsuddin Jabbar of Texas drove a rented pickup down Bourbon Street packed with revelers celebrating the new year. A New Orleans police officer shot and killed Jabbar after he crashed the truck, and city officials reopened the streets for parties the next day. Experts and locals alike say the news coverage of the attack slowed tourism to the city just when it was regaining momentum after the COVID pandemic. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:16. Continuing. In late 2024, superstar Taylor Swift's 3-night Eras Tour appearance at the iconic Caesars Superdome provided a $500 million boost to the local economy, according to tourism experts. New Orleans draws more than 18 million visitors a year, dwarfing the 364,000 who call the city home. And those visitors are typically about twice as wealthy as local residents. And now that's according to a 2021 study commissioned by state officials. In addition to individual tourists, tens of thousands of convention goers pour $2 billion into the economy each year. In an effort to reassure those all-important visitors that the city was safe, particularly those coming for the Super Bowl February 9, city officials flooded the streets with police officers, installed new security barriers, and hung new cameras in busy areas. And while the game went off without a hitch, police overtime contributed to a significant budget shortfall, as did a snowstorm in late January. The city ultimately had to borrow $125 million to cover the costs, and has cut about $150 million from next year's budget just to close the gap. City officials are also struggling to pay for Hurricane Katrina-related street repairs, which are still needed 20 years later. City leaders say part of the problem can be attributed to the indictment of Mayor LaToya Cantrell on federal corruption charges last August. Cantrell is term limited and leaving office in January. She's being replaced by City Council member Helena Moreno, a Mexican-born Democrat and former television journalist. The local sheriff also lost her job after the May jailbreak. It took authorities 5 months and hundreds of thousands of dollars to recapture all of the escapees. Even the local sports teams are having terrible seasons. New Orleans Saints are 3-10. That's one of the worst records in the NFL. And the New Orleans Pelicans, 4-22, and in last place in their conference in the NBA. It has been a year of transition, a difficult year, said former Mayor Mark Morial, who is now president of the National Urban League. I think there's optimism in the city with the new mayor coming in, but still a lot of uncertainty. Morial said he worries about further budget cuts given President Donald Trump's criticisms of New Orleans as quite bad and overall federal spending reductions on social programs and road repairs. At the same time, there's a dramatic expansion of immigration enforcement. Morial was a mayor from 1994 to 2002. Morial said he's also worried that the immigration enforcement campaign in the New Orleans area is scaring away workers needed to keep the city's hotel and restaurants humming. In December, migrant rights groups organized several small protests in downtown New Orleans and hung signs criticizing the Trump administration's enforcement campaign. On Royal Street in the city's storied French Quarter, longtime business owner Benny Nagy said he's having one of his worst years in memory. Nagy, who has run Mardi Gras Zone for 25 years, said customers aren't buying. Employees have quit. Prices are up for the international goods he imports. But standing inside the warehouse-like store surrounded by bead necklaces, sequin dresses, and trinkets decorated with the city's iconic fleur-de-lis, Nagy said he's optimistic. He said that while the city has struggled recently, he's confident Trump's approach to international trade and tariffs, American manufacturing, and immigration enforcement will ultimately boost the entire country's economy. I honestly believe this is the golden age of America, and people won't realize it until 10 years from now, said Nagy, who was born in Iran before his Jewish family fled to safety in Israel when he was still a child. They later immigrated. Let's try that again. Long day. They later emigrated to the United States. Nagy, who's 59, said his pizza window workers quit after he hung an Israeli flag in memory of the October 7, 2023 attack by Hamas. And because of the new immigration enforcement, he can't find anybody to pick apples on his farm, 30 miles south of the city. You can feel the crunch, but it is for multiple reasons, he said. We are going through big change in the country, and change creates uncertainty. Like Nagy, French Quarter tarot card reader Marie Betty-Boo-Ware dismisses concerns about corruption in the city. She said every port city that she has ever worked in has shared similar traits, and she said that while New Orleans has been suffering this year, she feels many other Americans are as well. From her folding table in Jackson Square, where she can see a memorial to the 14 people killed in the January 1 attack, Ware, who's 58, greets other passing fortune tellers, musicians, and homeless people by name. With her new puppy, Lilybell, sitting in a wheeled cart at her side, Ware said she has been priced out of the French Quarter over the past 2 decades and now lives on the other side of the Mississippi River. She gave thanks that Mother Nature spared the region from hurricanes this year, but worried the city cannot afford to put enough cops on the streets to reassure tourists. She said conversations all year with her clients have also revealed a deep economic uncertainty among the public, enough to make her wonder aloud whether she should give up her decades-old gig as a tarot card reader or at least find another income source. Mardi Gras is in mid-February for 2026. That's relatively soon after the year-end holidays, and Ware said she's worried people struggling with finances at Christmas won't be willing to spend even more to celebrate Mardi Gras. If you get into an environment where everybody is economically nervous, then I have to start wondering whether I should get a real part-time job, she said. All you can do is try to keep trying to put the best face on your tourism. Though tourists don't necessarily notice the city's challenges, United Way officials on the front lines say they hope 2026 starts on an upswing. Michael Williamson, president and CEO of United Way of Southeastern Louisiana, said he hears a sense of optimism across the area. The number of people seeking help via the United Way nearly doubled from 2023 through 24 to 24-25. And the organization has rolled out prosperity centers to help locals do their taxes, qualify for government programs, and even make down payments on houses or vehicles. I think folks here take an immense amount of pride in this being their home, and they show up every day to make it better. The way the community shows up for each other, that breeds optimism when people see others stepping up to lead. Who could not be excited about being in New Orleans with Mardi Gras and Jazz Fest and all these people wanting to come to visit? Now that's the attitude Michelle Gallner feels whenever she visits her hometown. A native of New Orleans, Gallner, who's 44, moved to Baton Rouge a few years ago and was visiting the city with friends recently after her wedding. She said she never had a second thought about encouraging her wedding guests to visit the Big Easy, even after all the struggles it has had. One thing they say about New Orleans is that we are resilient, Gallner said. Even Katrina couldn't take us out. We are here to stay.
COVID-19, the flu and stomach bug are spreading. Illnesses kick in just in time for the holidays. From Mary Walrath Holdridge of USA Today. 'Tis the season of vigorous hand washing and using copious amounts of hand sanitizer as Americans try to avoid getting sick before the holidays. If it seems like everyone around you is constantly sniffling, sneezing, coughing, or calling out of work, it's likely because the first act of flu and cold season is rearing its ugly head. Common winter illnesses, including COVID, influenza, and norovirus, also known as the stomach bug, are circulating in schools, workplaces, and communities across the country. Health agencies, including the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, use wastewater data collected by measuring the presence of pathogens in the water sources such as sewage, industrial waste, and stormwater runoff to monitor illnesses that are spreading and those that are predicted to spread in the future. Hoping to stay healthy for the holidays? Here's what to know. Norovirus is a highly contagious virus that causes unpleasant gastrointestinal symptoms and is often referred to as the stomach bug or stomach flu, though it is not actually related to the influenza virus. The most common symptoms are nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, stomach cramping or pain. Sometimes fever, headache, or body aches may occur. Wastewater data maintained by Wastewater Scan, a Stanford University-led tool for tracking the spread of disease, reported norovirus activity as being high nationally the week ending December 12th, representing a 42% increase in the median concentration compared to November, which means more of the virus has been detected in the wastewater of more communities nationwide. CDC data through December the 6th showed that 9.37%, 255, of the 2,722 norovirus tests administered that week were reported as being positive to the National Respiratory and Enteric Virus Surveillance System. The highly contagious disease has been steadily increasing since September, a typical pattern for viruses that spread most widely during colder months. Last year, wastewater scan data showed norovirus concentration started to increase in October and peaked in February. Influenza A concentration saw a dramatic increase of 260% since October, according to the wastewater scan data through December the 12th. Even so, flu activity is still considered low nationally, according to both wastewater scan and CDC data. CDC data through December the 6th showed that 0.5% or 4,779 of the 59,364 flu tests administered that week were reported positive to the National Respiratory and Enteric Virus Surveillance System. In some regions, specifically in Colorado, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Utah, and Wyoming, that number was as high as over 20%. Some regions of the United States have notably higher flu activity than others. The Northeast and South are now officially considered to be in flu season and have higher concentrations than the rest of the country.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:29.
Continuing, as of December 9th, CDC projections found that flu infections are on the rise in 43 states and unchanged or not reported in 7 states. No states reported a decline. The most common symptoms of the flu are fever, cough, sore throat, body aches, runny or stuffy nose, headache, and fatigue. Is COVID on the rise? What to know about latest symptoms? In line with past seasonal patterns, COVID infections are on the rise as the frigid months of winter approach. COVID activity was high nationwide the week ending December the 12th, according to Wastewater Scan, marking a 21% increase since November. Strain XFG, which is Stratus, remains the most common. The CDC, on the other hand, categorized COVID activity as low on December the 6th, with the highest rate of infections happening in the Northeast. Several states either didn't report data or reported limited data from a lower number of sites, which can contribute to data discrepancies. Additional CDC data from the same week showed 3.61%, or 2,024 of 56,064 administered COVID tests were positive. As of December the 9th, the CDC estimated that COVID infections are growing or likely growing in 22 states, declining or likely declining in 4 states, and not changing in 21 states. Some common symptoms of COVID are fever or chills, cough, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, sore throat, congestion or a runny nose, new loss of taste or smell, fatigue, muscle or body aches, and headache. How to stay healthy for the holidays. You may be tired of hearing it, but the old cliche is true. Washing your hands well and often is one of the most effective ways to keep contagious illnesses at bay, according to the CDC. This applies to all the ailments above and others that often circulate during the winter time, like respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV. Health agencies recommend washing your hands with hot soapy water for at least 20 seconds. It's also important to wash them before and after eating, before and after handling food, after using the bathroom, and after being around sick people or touching surfaces that could be contaminated. For norovirus, general food safety practices can also prevent a holiday trip to urgent care, says the CDC. Cook your food thoroughly and to the designated internal temperature at least 145 degrees Fahrenheit as a general rule. Clean and sanitize frequently touched surfaces and objects, especially if they have been in contact with food, and wash fruits and vegetables before serving or eating them. And what to know about COVID and flu vaccines. The most effective way to prevent serious illness from flu and COVID is vaccination, according to the World Health Organization, CDC, and other leading medical institutions. Everyone 6 months and older is eligible for the flu vaccine unless they have a specified medical condition, such as an allergy to the ingredients or a previous severe reaction to the shot. COVID vaccination is slightly more complicated after changes made by the CDC and the Food and Drug Administration under Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The vaccine is recommended for everyone 6 months or older based on individual decision making after consulting with the healthcare provider, which a federal vaccine panel called Shared Clinical Decision Making. Physicians, registered nurses, and pharmacists may administer vaccines to adults and school-aged children after discussing them with the patient, according to the CDC. Pharmacies are the most common place American adults turn to for seasonal vaccines. CVS and Walgreens offer vaccine appointments and also accept walk-ins. Both offer the option to receive multiple vaccines at once.
Sneaking over to page 2. Slop earns Merriam-Webster's 2025 Word of the Year crown. Fernando Cervantes Jr. of USA Today writes this brief and interesting article. After a full year of hectic news, original trends, nonstop content, Merriam-Webster has summed it all up perfectly in one word: slop. On December 15, Merriam-Webster announced slop as the 2025 word of the year. Now, it's defined as digital content of low quality that is produced usually in quantity by means of artificial intelligence, or AI, according to a news release from the dictionary. Merriam-Webster chose the word after seeing a large increase in lookup volume on their website amid a surge of AI slop over the last year. All that stuff was being dumped on our screens, according to Greg Barlow, who's the president of Merriam-Webster. And the word of the year captured it in just 4 letters. The English language came through again. Now, although slop was chosen as the word of the year, other words had a big year too, the dictionary said. Among them were gerrymander, performative, touch grass, 6-7, or written out as numbers, 6-7, and the ridiculously long Lake Chargogagoman. I can't even try this one. Oh my God. It's like 2 full lines of G's. Yeah, G's and B's and you name it. That the dictionary said was part of a hit spelling game on Roblox. Slop was not the only word that was honored this year. The now ultra-viral 6-7 was chosen by Dictionary.com as their word of the year back in October. Now, it's part of an inside joke, part social signal and part performance, according to Steve Johnson, who's the director of lexicography for the Dictionary Media Group at IXL Learning. When people say it, they're not just repeating a meme. They are shouting a feeling. On the other hand, Cambridge Dictionary went a different route by taking inspiration from Taylor Swift, choosing parasocial as their word of the year. In a news release issued in November, the dictionary stated that it chose the word after observing the reactions of Swift's fans to her engagement to Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce. Millions of fans related to Taylor Swift's confessional lyrics about dating and heartbreak and desire, leading to what psychologists describe as parasocial bonds with stars. The news release stated. Basically, what all that means is that the fans out there are experiencing strong emotions and living the life that Taylor Swift lives. Last but not least, Oxford University Press chose rage bait as its word of the year, in part because the 2-word phrase was a representation of the change in internet discourse from sparking curiosity to sparking anger. The fact that the word rage bait exists and has been such a dramatic surge in usage means we're increasingly aware of the manipulation tactics we can be drawn into online. This from Casper Grathwohl, president of Oxford Languages, in a news release.
Nick Reiner charged in stabbing of parents. Son of the couple faces 2 counts of murder. This article is accompanied by an inset picture of Nick Reiner, the son of Rob Reiner. At the time, he was attending the Los Angeles premiere of Spinal Tap II. The end continues. This picture is from September the 9th. This article is authored by Brendan Morrow, Tejuan Moorman, Kimi Robinson, and Edward Segura. After the slayings of acclaimed Hollywood actor-director Rob Reiner and his producer wife Michelle Singer Reiner, the couple's friends are speaking out about their deaths. In a statement shared with the Associated Press on Tuesday, December 16th, Billy Crystal, Martin Short, Albert Brooks, Larry David, and more honored Reiner, who was 78, as a master storyteller and a passionate, brave citizen, adding that he and Singer Reiner, who was 70, devoted a great deal of their lives for the betterment of our fellow citizens. The acclaimed Princess Bride director and his producer wife were found dead in their Southern California home on Sunday, December the 14th. Their 32-year-old son, Nick Reiner, is being charged with murder. On Tuesday, December 16th, prosecutors filed criminal charges against Nick Reiner, who was accused of stabbing his parents. He fled but was arrested hours later on the outskirts of downtown Los Angeles, prosecutors said. Reiner faces 2 counts of murder, with the special circumstances allegation of multiple murders and a special allegation that he personally used a dangerous and deadly weapon, a knife. Niyama Ramani, president of West Coast Tribal Lawyers and a former federal prosecutor, told USA Today that the special circumstance of multiple murders entails a mandatory life without the possibility of parole case or a potential death penalty case. Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman told reporters that no decision at this point has been made with respect to the death penalty. Nick Reiner was set to undergo medical clearance before making a court appearance for his arraignment. The Hollywood couple's loss is beyond tragic, County District Attorney Nathan Hochman said. We will commit ourselves to bringing their murderer to justice. The felony complaint against their screenwriter's son was filed in Los Angeles Superior Court hours after Hochman announced in a news conference that his office would be filing charges. In a news release shared with media outlets, the prosecutor's office described Nick Reiner as being charged with fatally stabbing his parents, marking the first time the officials detailed the couple's deaths. The prosecutor's office will take the thoughts and desires of the family into consideration in making our decision about criminal charges, Hochman said. The DA's office says Nick Reiner did unlawfully and with malice aforethought, murder his parents. Alan Jackson, the defense attorney for Nick Reiner, told reporters outside a Los Angeles courthouse late Tuesday that his client had not been medically cleared to appear in court, according to a video shared by TMZ. Jackson has represented numerous other high-profile clients, including Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey. Jackson also defended Karen Reed, who in June was acquitted of murder and the death of her police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe. She was convicted on the lesser charge of operating a vehicle under the influence. Medical clearance is a process that everybody who gets arrested and gets held in the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department jail goes through, prosecutors said. Nick Reiner is the middle child of the couple's 3 children. The couple also shared older son Jake Reiner and a daughter, Romy Reiner. Rob Reiner also adopted his first wife, Penny Marshall's daughter, Tracy Reiner. Excuse me. Nick Reiner had detailed his struggles with drug addiction, which were depicted in the semi-autobiographical film Being Charlie, co-written by Nick Reiner and directed by his father. Nick Reiner was arrested without incident at Exposition Park near downtown L.A., just south of the University of Southern California campus. Los Angeles Police Department Deputy Chief Alan Hamilton said at the December 16th news conference. In a news release shared later in the afternoon, the prosecutor's office said Nick Reiner had fled his company's Brentwood home before he was arrested. National Public Radio has published resurfaced quotes from an interview with Rob Reiner for its Fresh Air show in September, in which the director said his son has been great and hasn't been doing drugs for over 6 years. He added at the time, he's in a really good place. Reiner also reflected on his relationship with his son in the interview, telling NPR's Fresh Air he was never ever too busy for him. I mean, if anything, I was the other way, you know. I was more hands-on and trying to do whatever I thought I could do to help, he said. I'm sure I made mistakes, and you know, I've talked about that with him since. Authorities have made no mention of a possible motive. Asked whether the murder weapon was recovered, Hochman said at the news conference that would be revealed in court. Authorities said autopsies would determine the precise cause, manner, and times of death. Various news media outlets have reported that Nick Reiner had a heated quarrel with his parents Saturday night at a holiday party hosted by comedian Conan O'Brien, according to Reuters. Representatives for the Reiners have yet to respond to USA Today's request for comment.
Moving on to page 4, interstellar comet 31/Atlas is nearing Earth. It's projected to pass within, are you ready, 170 million miles. Whew, that's pretty close. Eric Legato of USA Today writes, the mystifying 31/Atlas interstellar comet is blazing toward Earth and will, in a matter of days, come as close to our planet as it ever will. The impending cosmic rendezvous, if you want to call it that, since 31/Atlas was still pretty far away, has been anticipated for months, ever since the strange visitor was first spotted in Earth's neighborhood. Since its discovery in our solar system in July, 31/Atlas has passed within the orbit of Mars and come within 130 million miles of the Sun. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:45. Continuing. Now, the ancient space object is due to approach Earth, offering the world's scientists an unprecedented opportunity to study a comet that formed in an entirely different part of our Milky Way galaxy. Of course, the public may also have an interest in spotting the object that many sincerely believe could be an alien spaceship. So, exactly what is 31/Atlas? The object with that name made news in July 2025, when it was confirmed to be the third object ever discovered originating outside Earth's solar system. When it was spotted, 31/Atlas was traveling at 137,000 miles per hour, according to NASA. Observations of the speed and trajectory confirmed to astronomers that it was formed in another star system and was ejected into interstellar space, the region between stars, according to NASA. For possibly billions of years, the comet has drifted on a journey from the general direction of the constellation Sagittarius in the center of the Milky Way that recently brought it into our solar system. Now, although astronomers don't yet know exactly how big 31/Atlas could be, estimates range from a few hundred feet to a few miles across, according to the European Space Agency. But data from the Hubble Space Telescope helped astronomers estimate the size of the comet's solid, icy nucleus as between anywhere from about 1,400 feet to 3.5 miles in diameter. Now, unlike comets bound to the sun's gravity, 31/Atlas is traveling on a hyperbolic orbit that eventually will carry it out of the solar system and back into interstellar space. November 19th, NASA released a trove of never-before-seen images of Atlas that revealed new characteristics of the object. So, how close is it going to get? The comet, which is not a danger to Earth, is projected to pass within about 170 million miles of our planet, December 19th. Now, that's nearly twice the distance of Earth to the Sun and more than 700 times the distance of Earth to the Moon. Are you going to be able to see it? Though 31/Atlas is not visible to the naked eye, viewers with a small telescope can observe the comet in the pre-dawn sky until the spring of 2026, according to NASA. During the comet's closest approach to Earth, sky watchers looking east to northeast could catch the comet right under the star Regulus, one of the brightest stars visible to Earth in the constellation of Leo, according to NASA's December Skywatching Guide. The agency's online simulation eyes on the solar system shows the location and path of 31/Atlas as it moves through our solar system. Is it an alien ship? Now, the strange outsider's jaunt through Earth's cosmic neighborhood has sparked plenty of conspiracy theories. One particularly infamous idea, put forth by a Harvard astrophysicist named Avi Loeb, is that 31/Atlas could be an alien spaceship. Now, although Loeb has conceded on the publishing platform Medium that the object is most likely a comet of natural origin, he has not ruled out the possibility that it could be extraterrestrial technology. NASA authorities, though, have sought to put that notion to rest. In a social media exchange with reality TV star Kim Kardashian in October, NASA acting administrator Sean Duffy affirmed, "No aliens, no threat to life here on Earth." Nicola Fox, associate administrator of NASA's Science Mission Directorate, also rejected the alien conspiracy theory at a news conference in November, saying, "We certainly haven't seen any techno-signatures or anything from it that would lead us to believe it was anything other than a comet." Scientists who are eager to study planetary material that formed from another star have for months trained ground and space telescopes on 31 Atlas. The Hubble telescope, the James Webb Space Telescope, have returned images and data. Hubble's latest sighting of the interstellar object came November 30, NASA said in a December blog post. At the time, 31 Atlas was about 178 million miles from Earth. Because Hubble was tracking the comet as it moved, stars appeared as streaks of light, NASA said.
Turning to the money section of USA Today, more Americans saving in banks. Nonprofits initiatives lead to more new accounts from Medora Lee of USA Today. Opening a first savings or checking account with birthday money or a first paycheck is a rite of passage for many Americans. But millions of adults are just now doing that or are learning how to use their accounts to improve their finances, banking experts say. In 2024, 4.8 million new bank-on accounts were opened, up 27% from the year before, according to the St. Louis Federal Reserve. Bank On, an initiative led by the nonprofit Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund, also known as CFE, brings together a coalition of financial institutions nationwide to offer affordable and safe bank-on certified accounts to unbanked and underbanked people. By the end of last year, there were more than 14 million active accounts, the St. Louis Fed said. Access to basic banking services helps people achieve economic stability and build generational wealth, experts said. Without a bank account, households struggle to save, to manage everyday financial transactions, and to build a banking relationship that can lead to affordable credit. Financial institutions also provide fraud and loss protection. Cash flow is king, said Seth Schaefer, the Chief Impact Officer at Riverbank Community Credit Union. Banking helps customers by providing services such as flexible loans, grants, and real-time payrolls without high fees and interest rates. He said, unbanked means having neither a checking nor savings account at a bank or credit union. In 2023, a record low 4.2% or 5.6 million households were unbanked, according to the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. That's down from the peak of 8.2% in 2011, it said. About 60% of the unbanked are cash-only users, which opens them up to theft or loss each day. They tend to trend older, are more likely Hispanic, and are distrustful of banks, the FDIC said. The other 40% of unbanked households rely on non-bank prepaid cards or payment apps like Venmo or PayPal for everyday financial services, like paying bills and receiving money, according to the agency. Underbanked is when households have an account with a bank or credit union, but still use non-bank products for most of their financial needs. In 2023, 19 million households were underbanked, according to the FDIC. Why aren't people using banks? Top reasons people remain unbanked include high minimum balance requirements, mistrust of banks, and high and unpredictable fees, according to the FDIC. To counter that, banks and credit unions nationwide have worked for years to make banking more inviting. Bank On, which includes all types of financial institutions, and a credit union-only campaign called Backbone, promote low to no fee accounts and safe products to bring more people into the mainstream financial system. There's a perception it's a club and you have to qualify to get in, Schaefer said, but that's not the case. Often people who had a bank account but bounced checks and accumulated negative balances are declined for another account or discouraged from trying again to open one. But we let you in, Zagora Banks, Chief Impact Strategy Officer at Verity Credit Union, said this. Community-based credit unions might have more flexibility than large institutions to dig into each person's history. How does banking build wealth? According to the United Way, about 42% of households are considered asset limited, income constrained, and employed, or ALICE, up from 32% in 2008. ALICE includes people in poverty, 13%, and the 29% who are just above the federal poverty line but cannot afford basic everyday needs like housing, childcare, food, transportation, healthcare, and basic technology. They often rely on alternative financial services such as expensive money orders, check cashing services, and payday loans rather than traditional loans and credit cards to manage their finances and fund purchases options that often end up costing them a lot of money. These are people who need banking services, Schaefer said. You can't buy yourself out of financial hardship. Most people are denied bank accounts for as little as a $35 overdraft owed at another bank, he said. Financial institutions can work with those people to find ways to break that cycle. Sometimes it's setting up real-time payments so someone like an Uber driver can get paid right away and avoid overdrafts. Or if someone needs to send money back home to your country, we can support that, so they don't have to use a higher cost method like wiring money, according to banks. Banking also makes it easier, faster, and safer to receive government benefits. The urgent need to receive COVID stimulus checks via direct deposit in 2020 pushed many unbanked people to open accounts for quick, safe access to money, according to the FDIC. Since then, government agencies like the IRS and Social Security Administration have stopped issuing benefits by paper check, forcing millions more Americans to discover banking. And how does banking help build communities? Banks, especially community banks, not only support people in the community, but also small businesses, which drives growth, studies show. Credit unions also are locally rooted, which makes them very community-oriented, according to banks. When the government recently closed for a record 43 days because of a budget impasse, we did financial check-ins and financial coaching on site to find out ways in which folks were impacted, she said. Her credit union launched a community care initiative, delivering $53,000 in financial aid to more than 212 people. We understand gaps that exist in local communities and can mobilize quickly, she said. Unlike the largest banks, credit unions answer to their members and communities rather than shareholders.
You're listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for Thursday, December the 18th, 2025. That's on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Drost.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of USA Today. Your readers are
Ken Drost.
and Jim Duffy. And turning to our sports page, NBA Cup champion Knicks set sights on bigger prize. Next on plate is making and winning the league crown. This article is accompanied by an inset picture of Knicks center Karl Anthony Towns, who scored 16 points, reacts against the Spurs during the NBA Cup final in Las Vegas. This article is authored by Lorenzo Reyes of USA Today. For the New York Knicks, the NBA Cup is nice. The $530,000 each player pockets will fatten bank accounts. The franchise that hasn't won an NBA championship in 52 years got to outlast all other 2019s for a trophy. They got, as center Karl Anthony Towns told reporters after the game, the chance to wear this dope-ass shirt on with the Knicks saying we're champions. But if this is the lone hardware the Knicks end up with at season's end, it won't be nearly enough. New York crashed the glass, out-hustled San Antonio, and sprinted past the upstart Spurs 124-113 to claim the 2025 NBA Cup title on Tuesday, December 16th. But the Knicks are built for more. They should contend in the Eastern Conference and beyond. And their off-season move to fire former coach Tom Thibodeau after New York reached its first conference finals in 25 seasons indicated that there is no other outcome to be tolerated from this build other than an NBA Finals trophy. Of course, if you win the Cup, you feel like you have to validate why we got here and got ourselves in this position to win, according to Towns. The Knicks overcame an 11-point deficit and a slow shooting night from star point guard Jalen Brunson. They launched a 15-3 run to start the fourth quarter and limit Spurs star phenom Victor Wembanyama to 2 points on 0 of 4 shooting in the final period. New York entered down by 5. The Knicks didn't let Wembanyama, all 7'5" of him, record a rebound in the fourth quarter. The irony in all this is this was really a game that counted, but didn't really. On the other hand, yes, the Knicks will claim this title, but all statistics recorded in the game won't count towards season totals. It's fairly representative of the state of the Knicks. This is an accomplishment to be cherished and celebrated, but it's the one that has eluded New York that actually counts. I'm very excited, Brunson told reporters after the game. It was a goal of ours that we get to check off. It's an important stepping stone for us. We can still learn from this game and get better as well. I'm very thankful for the opportunity that we presented ourselves. We found a way to win. The Knicks are 18-7, which ranks second in a wide-open Eastern Conference. Established teams from previous seasons like the Celtics with Jason Tatum and the Pacers with Tyrese Halliburton are facing significant injuries to star players. Teams like the Cavaliers and Bucks have sputtered to start the season. The Pistons with a 21-5 record and the Magic with 15-11 appear to be the top threats. But the Knicks could also be at an inflection point, with rumors swirling about the future of Bucks star Giannis Antetokounmpo in Milwaukee. He reportedly prefers the Knicks as a destination, and his addition would bolster championship aspirations. Regardless, this roster is balanced and complete. Towns can stretch the floor with his range. Brunson is a consistent threat to score. OG Anunoby, who scored a game-high 28 points on Tuesday night, is also a defensive stopper and one who switched on to shifty Spurs guard De'Aaron Fox late in the game. A game like this, an environment like this, you don't really see around the NBA too often, Brunson said. We've got to take advantage of the experience that we got here. The Knicks will need much more from their bench down the stretch. Backup guard Tyler Kolek provided massive minutes and recorded 14 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in the victory. These are valuable experiences for young players like Kolek. While the NBA Cup doesn't carry the same stakes as the playoffs, it's a heightened environment nonetheless. It's now incumbent on Coach Mike Brown and the rest of the staff to use this NBA Cup championship as a catalyst to spark further development. We're going to celebrate this one tonight, Towns said. We're going to hold this cup championship dear to our heart, but now it's time to work on the second one. He didn't say it by name, but there was no doubt about which title Towns was talking about.
New issue looms. Big money NIL, player development, quickly expanding QB transfer carousel. Matt Hayes, columnist for USA Today Sports Network, says, this latest round of college football nonsense began on Saturday, December the 13th, when we heard star quarterback LaNorris Sellers was negotiating a return to South Carolina. A perfectly positioned leak between the beginning of the college football playoffs and the opening of the transfer portal, just in case another interested school could, come up with some make me think twice cash. On Monday, the quarterback carousel, not to be confused with all of its older and more genteel cousin, the coaching carousel, hit full crazy mode. Are you ready for this? DJ Lagway, Florida's star sophomore quarterback, came to an agreement with the new Gators coaching staff that it wasn't going to work and entered the portal. The same Lagway who Florida Athletic Director Scott Strickland a year ago fretted over losing while debating the pros and cons of firing Coach Billy Napier. If he fired Napier, he could lose Lagway, the future of the program. And now neither one of them are in Gainesville. Later in the day on Monday, Nebraska star sophomore quarterback Dylan Raiola announced that he was entering the portal 6 weeks after Cornhuskers coach Matt Rhule declined the Penn State job, in part because he could not walk away from what he promised Raiola individually and the rest of the team specifically, that Nebraska is home. If you think the quarterback carousel ends here, I got a gently used 4-team playoff to sell you. Before the afternoon was complete, Cincinnati's Brendan Sorsby, who might be the best of the early entries, announced he was looking for a new home. So don't be shocked when more big names hit the portal, knowing full well there are only so many elite jobs. The only difference between the two carousels: coaches use agents to shop for jobs while still under contract, while players use social media. It's debatable which one has the greater impact. The 2-week transfer portal opens January 2, and it may as well be the NFL's version of legal tampering prior to free agency. The quarterbacks aren't technically in the transfer portal. They've just let it be known that they're going to be. And if any program looking for a quarterback is interested, please reach out. Or better yet, reach out to their representation. In a back-channel world, of course. It's the wild, wild west on steroids, everybody. A year after leading Arizona State to the CFP, Sam Levitt left Tempe and is looking for a new school. Sellers, meanwhile, is negotiating, instead of leaving for the NFL, with a first-round NFL draft grade. The money's there. It's only growing with every passing season. The same administrators, complaining about an unsustainable system are the same group cheering on private equity's involvement in the sport. You better believe every quarterback in college football saw the game-changing $500 million private equity investment move from Utah last week, and has heard over and over about the unfolding magical season at Texas Tech and its $25 million roster. Why wouldn't every player, and specifically quarterbacks, the most important position on the field, do everything in their power to get it? We've complained over and over how college football has become the NFL, and now it's staring directly in our faces. It's time to see it see it for what it is. It's a cash grab for schools, for players, and that means the foundational truism with the NFL now holds firm with college football. Get your money while you can, because if you get hurt or you can't play, the team is moving to somebody who can, and they're always available. The nation's leading passer, Brew Mestemacher, is projected to be new Oklahoma State coach Eric Morris's top target, because Morris coached Mestemacher at North Texas. But Mestemacher could have other options should he enter the portal. Now, so would Josh Hoover from TCU, Darian Mensah from Duke, and C.J. Bailey, North Carolina State. Many in the coaching fraternity believe Michigan's Bryce Underwood could be available. So those who embrace the uncertainty of the portal when it comes to the most important position on the field are those who can greatly benefit. 7 of the 12 teams in the CFP, that's Oregon, Oklahoma, Tulane, Ole Miss, Miami, Ohio State, and Indiana. They are using transfer quarterbacks, and the 3 quarterbacks who were Heisman Trophy finalists were transfers. Fernando Mendoza played at Cal in 2024. He led Indiana to its first unbeaten season and #1 ranking. He then won the Heisman by a whopping 927-point margin. The past 4 quarterbacks to win the Heisman transferred from another school. It's a different world now, Mendoza said. When I left Cal, I knew exactly what I wanted. I looked for the coach who could develop me as a player. More and more now, a lot of quarterbacks will be looking for that. That's not so crazy, after all, is it?
Congress sees a youth sports crisis. Can we fix it? From Stephen Borelli of USA Today. The big business of youth sports has reached the U.S. Congress. A House subcommittee says it has created a crisis for kids and their parents. The youth sports industry generates more than $40 billion in annual revenue. Representative Kevin Kiley, Republican from California, the chair of the Subcommittee on Early Childhood, Elementary, and Secondary Education, said to open a hearing on Tuesday, December the 16th, entitled Benched, the Crisis in America, Youth Sports and Its Cost to Our Future. But this revenue comes at a steep cost to families, Kiley said. Parents are told that only year-round travel teams, private coaching, and early specialization will keep their child competitive and maybe even earn them a scholarship. That false promise has created a spending surge that prices out the average family while pushing kids as young as 8 into high-cost, high-pressure programs that simply aren't necessary for long-term development. Kiley said that more than 60 million kids participate in youth sports in the U.S., and he doubled down on the 63% participation target set through the Healthy People 2030 program administered by the government. We are somewhere around 55% of kids ages 6 to 17, a participation rate that lags behind the pre-pandemic level of 2019, which was 61%. Public funding absolutely is crucial to making sure that we have community-based, nonprofit-based, and school-based programs, said Catherine Van Dyke, a senior legal fellow for the American Economics Liberties Project and a witness at Tuesday's hearing. Because when we don't have those, what we have left is these really high-cost monopolistic entities that are not interested in growing their programs to make them affordable and accessible to everyone. They're interested in protecting their monopoly and driving costs up. That's why we see a $40 billion industry that is growing according to investment firms. What is growing as participation is going down. Excuse me. What does that tell us? It tells us that they are jacking up prices and they are solely focused on profit. Our children deserve better. than a childhood for sale to the highest bidder. While experts and Congress members push to the national forefront many of the issues that consume sports parents, they also offer potential changes to the system. Here are some highlights of the hearing. Excuse me. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:15. Why is Congressional Subcommittee saying we have a youth sports crisis? Several statistics used by Kylie, other members of the House Subcommittee on Early Childhood, Elementary, and Secondary Education, and witnesses at the hearing have been mentioned in this space. First, 70% of kids quit organized sports by the age of 13. The average U.S. sports family spent more than $1,000 on its child's primary sport in 2024. Travel sports can cost families upward of $3,000 per year or more. Private equity firms are helping to fuel spending, along with a feeling of pressure among parents that playing for select teams and specializing early leads to playing in college. An increasingly fewer number of kids have access to affordable opportunities to learn important life skills and to try new things, leading to obesity and excessive screen time. What we are witnessing is more than a drop in sports participation, Kylie said. It's the loss of one of the most effective tools we have to combat rising isolation and mental health challenges in our children. When children lose regular in-person team activities, they lose daily opportunities to build confidence, belonging, and real-world social connection. How can kids and their parents better navigate youth sports? My personal experience with travel and club teams at the high school level is that they don't promise you the chance to play in college as much as give the opportunity to play in front of college coaches. While we can look at sports as an outlet for getting a scholarship and helping us to get into a college or university, we need to understand the odds that can be more realistic about our kids' chances. I think parents need to begin at the end, said John O'Sullivan, Chief Executive Officer of the Changing the Game Project, which helps youth sports as a recreational but life development tool. What do you want out of sports? They want a healthy, functioning, high-character human being. Sign up for sporting programs and find coaches and find leagues that support that mission. The purpose is to develop a great human being, and then maybe if you have the luck and the genetics, you will do well. And you get a scholarship. Maybe you play at the next level. But it's really about human development first. According to 2024 NCAA data, supplemented by data from the National Federation of State High School Associations, about 6% of high school athletes play collegiately. A lower percentage play Division I, while less than 1% of NCAA athletes are drafted into a professional sport. A national parent survey conducted by the Aspen Institute's Project Play showed that roughly 2 in 10 youth sports parents believe their child has the ability to eventually play Division I college sports, and 1 in 10 think their child could reach the pros or the Olympics. Perhaps filling the disconnect of perception requires us to prioritize why we play sports. A kid standing over a putt, a kid about to take a penalty kick, a kid about to take a free throw that matters. Those are life skills you can teach in real time. Steve Boyle, the co-founder and executive director of 241 Sports, an organization that helps kids try out multiple sports, testified Tuesday. I was a school counselor, and so I would always be told, hey, you got to go in and do a lesson on anxiety or anger management or conflict resolution. It was a heck of a lesson. You know how much impact it had? None. The next day it was gone. We wouldn't teach piano once and say, good luck, have at it. Now you're good at it. You have to continue to teach these skills and use the opportunity of sports when those emotions are happening in real time to say, all right, this is how you can deal with this right here in a safe and fun place, so that when you're about to road rage or lose it on somebody, you've developed those skills in such ways. Sports is the best opportunity to do that, and we miss out on so many kids if we don't give them access to sports. Boyle and his wife Carrie started 2-for-1 Sports in 2006 after their 9-year-old daughter was told trying other sports was not an option if she wanted to play for a local travel team. Still, many parents fear of missing out on such opportunities. Kylie, the subcommittee's chair, says he played basketball and soccer growing up. He didn't make his high school freshman basketball team or varsity soccer team, though he played tennis, and spoke of an inherent winnowing process in a lot of sports. He asked O'Sullivan, who has spent 5 decades as an athlete or coach to youth and collegiate athletes, how we maintain opportunities for young people of different skill levels. I think it's, again, this education around what is the purpose of sport, O'Sullivan replied. Parents ask me all the time, how does my kid make the elite team? And I think that's the worst word in sports, is elite for little kids. We have to keep as many kids as possible, as long as possible, in the best environment possible. The countries that do it best in sport development, they keep those kids. They're not making cuts at 6 or 7 years old. They're not forming competitive teams. What are some solutions to the youth sports crisis? Van Dyke, an anti-monopoly and consumer advocate, said the 2008 financial crisis and the recession that followed proved devastating to parks and recreation budgets, while COVID delivered another crushing blow. Parks and rec budgets were slashed, and that really did leave a void where private equity firms came in and filled it with high-cost, flashy elite club teams, she says. And by filling that void, they were then able to continue to build their flywheel, where they gained control of the venues and the governing bodies and the apparel companies. And that flywheel also builds a moat that the community groups that my colleagues here are talking about can't compete with. They can't penetrate it because these private equity companies aren't just capturing the teams and the leagues, they're capturing the players. Bobby Scott, Democrat from Virginia, the ranking member of the House Committee on Education and Workforce, under which Kylie's childhood, elementary, and secondary education is a subcommittee, then responded to her. Well, it seems to me that we got to get Parks and Rec and public schools back involved so those opportunities are going to be there. Fewer PE classes are being offered in U.S. schools due to budget cuts, according to Aspen Sports and Society Program's State of Play of 2025. My physical education colleagues would say there's more to physical education than just sports, says Boyle, who played Division I basketball at Manhattan College. I don't think it has to be either or. I think that schools can work in a way that teach fundamental sports skills so that kids have some confidence to perhaps do some sports outside of school time. I think there's an opportunity here to create some consistency around how it's being developed, or being delivered, and to recognize the value of sport. Tom Farley, Executive Director of Aspen Sports and Society, testified Tuesday that we need to make a more deliberate look at the structure of school-based sports. One of the problems we have here is there will be 80 kids who try out for the boys' basketball team, he said, and 15 will make it, and 9 will get playing time. And we structurally push aside kids because of our traditional structure of school-based sports. But there are models out there where they're creating multiple teams. You might have 2 freshman teams or 3 JV teams. We need to move to an environment where the supply of experiences meets the demand for them. And that's partly a function of schools rethinking their model. Farley also suggested we can require all youth sports organizations to register with the U.S. Center for Safe Sport and get their coaches trained in abuse prevention and pass background checks. He also suggested redirecting federal sports betting taxes to close youth sports gaps, especially for low-income youth, and educating states on ways to prioritize access to community sports. What does the hearing mean for American sports families? It appealed to several members of the House subcommittee, both about their own childhoods and the needs of constituents. In the district I represent, I have a lot of urban areas, Portland and Beaverton areas, but I also have a lot of very rural areas as well, says Suzanne Bomancini, a Democrat from Oregon. The subcommittee's a ranking member. So even with something like school bus drivers, if there's a bus that's going to take students somewhere, school bus driver employment is down 10%. What's going to happen for students who are hoping to engage in these extracurricular activities if they don't have that vital transportation, especially in rural areas? Many kids are going to be left out. Kiley, the subcommittee chair from California, said he hoped the hearing would amplify the work within youth sports the witnesses are doing, and even institute a change. He identified a few areas where we could see improvement. One is just programmatic in terms of having more offerings for students to continue to be involved, regardless of skill level. Having maybe more robust physical education programs in schools, he said. The second is financial, removing the barriers to entry that have gotten just exorbitant in many communities across the country. The third, I think, is cultural, just trying to reestablish a culture that is supportive of play and competition, and giving kids these opportunities from an early age. I do have to say, a few witnesses mentioned the experience of COVID, where we took this opportunity away from many kids. In my state, we were the last to allow youth sports to continue again. I took part in what we called Let Them Play rallies with kids across our state. And that was a period where the interests of young people were not the highest priority when it came to policy. And this was one manifestation of it. And we really must never make that mistake again. That's a broader issue. But on this specific issue of youth sports, I think we've had a lot of bipartisan agreement.
The Dolphins bench Tagovailoa after continued struggles. Michael Middlehurst Schwartz of USA Today writes, now add quarterback to the growing list of areas of uncertainty for the Miami Dolphins' future. Coach Mike McDaniel is benching starter Tua Tagovailoa and replacing him with rookie Quinn Ewers, according to multiple reports Wednesday, December 17th. The move comes one day after McDaniel cast doubt on Tagovailoa's standing, saying everything is on the table after the quarterback play Monday was not good enough in a 28-15 loss to the Steelers. Now, Tagovailoa has endured a turbulent ride in his sixth season in South Florida. He leads the NFL with a career worst 15 interceptions. The Southpaw signal caller was benched in Week 7 blowout loss to the Cleveland Browns, with McDaniel saying he just wasn't good enough on the day. Tagovailoa set off a maelstrom the previous week by criticizing unspecified teammates for showing up late to players-only meetings or missing them entirely. McDaniel rebuked his quarterback, who later apologized for his remarks. Now, Ewers, a seventh-round rookie out of Texas, replaced Tagovailoa in the loss to the Browns. He completed 5 out of 8 attempts, 53 yards in his NFL debut. In the loss to the Steelers, Tagovailoa struggled for the first 3 quarters before bolstering his final stat line in the last 3 drives. He finished with 253 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception on 22 out of 28 passing attempts. Tagovailoa's demotion is the latest shakeup for a franchise that has already experienced a good deal of upheaval in the last calendar year, with more potentially still to come. General Manager Chris Grier parted ways with the organization on Halloween, with McDaniel's future still unclear as he coaches out the season. With the loss to the Steelers, the Dolphins were eliminated from playoff contention. The team's postseason win drought, dating back to the 2000 season, is the longest active run for any team in the league. Now, McDaniel enjoyed a fruitful partnership with Tagovailoa in the early going of his coaching tenure. The peak arrived in the 2023 season, during which the offense led the NFL in total yards, and the quarterback earned his lone Pro Bowl nod. The following year, however, Tagovailoa missed 6 games due to a concussion and a hip ailment. Now, although Miami enjoyed a late-season resurgence this year, with a 4-game winning streak headed into the matchup with Pittsburgh, it was a rushing attack averaging a league-best 192 yards per game during that span that was leading the way. The Dolphins host the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday, in a game that was flexed from its original Sunday Night Football primetime slot. Tagovailoa is the NFL's sixth highest player after signing a 4-year, $212.1 million extension in 2024. He's due $54 million in guaranteed salary in 2026. Tagovailoa could be prohibitively expensive to part ways with if the Dolphins want to move on. Releasing him after the season would incur a record $99.2 million dead cap hit, although that figure could be spread out over 2 seasons with a post-June 1st designation.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 1:30. Forget NFL. Heisman finalist would be perfect WWE heel from Jordan Mendoza of USA Today. The next WWE star could be a Heisman Trophy runner-up. Even better, he could be a premier heel. If he hasn't had a tryout, Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia just delivered one of the best first impressions for a potential wrestling career, showing maybe his post-college football career should be in the ring and not on the field. It's no secret Pavia has become one of the most polarizing players in college football, with a story that is as incredible as his confidence and swagger. That was only proved when he showed he was bitter about not winning the Heisman Trophy, with an expletive directed at the Heisman Trophy voters after Indiana's Fernando Mendoza won it by a comfortable margin. It was met with swift backlash, including from Vanderbilt's athletic director, as the world saw Pavia as a sore loser. It was obvious he was going to have to apologize for it. Not the best look for his football career, but he ended up making a great audition for WWE. You could view it as an outburst or a promo. There is a chance Pavia could get a shot in the NFL, but he's far from an early round prospect. He could expect to hear his name in day 3 of the NFL draft, if any front offices are still intrigued despite his size, which is 5'9", and temperament. Chances are he makes it to training camp but faces an uphill battle to last a season. That's where wrestling comes in. Recently, WWE has made a push to target college athletes through its Next in Line program, helping athletes transition to the business after graduating. It's worked with stars like Oba Femi, Sol Ruka, Bron Breakker, shining after making the jump. Pavia is already halfway to proving he could do it. You may think his reaction was awful, but that was as good of a heel performance you could put on. Pavia showed he'd fit right in with the bad guys of wrestling. No one understood it better than Pat McAfee, who doubles as a WWE commentator during the football off-season. I don't think I've seen anybody have a bigger heel turn in one weekend than Diego Pavia, McAfee said on his show Monday, December 15th. Anybody who's flashy and talks a lot of expletive is going to be hated by a group of people regardless. But this weekend, with how it all went, I think a lot of people kind of turned on Diego Pavia. People already don't like him. So you could imagine him getting in the ring in a place where he can be unapologetically himself and speak however he wants. The crowd would boo him endlessly, and that would be gold for WWE's pockets. The best comparison would be to Logan Paul. The social media star came into WWE already disliked, knew it, and used it to his advantage to become a top heel. You may not like that he came into the wrestling world, but Paul has all the characteristics to be a villain. Of course, wrestling isn't just delivering promos. Paul works well in WWE because he knows how to wrestle. Pavia does have a wrestling background, winning a New Mexico State title in high school. That helps with a start. But the business of sports entertainment is a whole different monster, and he'd have to be open to learning how to last in the ring. Talking smack can only get you so far if you can't prove you belong in between the ropes. Pavia's future seems quite uncertain. He did work his way up from no football offers from Division I out of high school and junior college to leading Vanderbilt to his first 10-win season. He could find a way to earn a shot in the NFL and end up finding success there, or possibly the CFL. But if Pavia really wants a chance to thrive after college, wrestling could be the golden ticket. It has a worldwide fan base that is always on the hunt to find its next star to boo for speaking their mind, especially when it's someone notable. And the best part, Pavia won't have to apologize to anyone for being himself. Yeah.
By stalling playoff expansion, the Big Ten shows accidental genius. Blake Toppermeyer, columnist for USA Today Network, writes, short of any evidence proving Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti masterminded this whole thing, let's call it accidental genius or unintentional brilliance. Petitti, persistently gumming up the works of college football playoff expansion, has him falling buttocks backward into the perfect playoff format for the Big Ten, the status quo. The existing 12-team playoff format works neatly for Petitti's conference. If the past two seasons prove a reliable guide, the Big Ten would not substantially benefit from the addition of 4 more at-large playoff bids that increase the bracket to 16 teams. The first 4 teams out last year were Alabama, Miami, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. Now this year's sore 4 were Notre Dame, BYU, Texas, and Vanderbilt. Yeah, you notice what's missing from those quartets? Big Ten teams. The SEC, ACC, and Big 12 each got on board with a 5+11 playoff model this past offseason that, if approved, would expand the bracket for the 2026 season. The Big Ten stood alone in opposition to the 5+11 plan, with Petitti refusing to add 4 extra at-large bids or award the CFP selection committee more clout in determining the field. Petitti countered with other ideas that failed to gain widespread traction, such as play in games or pre-assigning multiple automatic bids for each of the Power 4 conferences. When the Big Ten's preferred 4+4+2+2+1+3 AL format, say that 3 times quickly, failed to garner necessary support, the conference moved on to blue sky ideas involving 24 or more teams, bloated with automatic bids. As Petitti mused aloud at Big Ten media days, whether an 8-4 Big Ten making the playoff might be just what the sport needs, a belief to which he alone subscribed, I thought to myself, this man is not serious about CFP expansion. He's just wasting time. Well, maybe that's the point. Cook up never going to happen expansion ideas to create a smokescreen, while the 12-team playoff that works well for the Big Ten marches on in perpetuity. The Big Ten qualified the most teams in the inaugural 12-team playoff, and Ohio State won the national championship. In this year's encore, it qualified its top 3 teams, Indiana, Ohio State, and Oregon. The Hoosiers and Buckeyes earned first-round byes, while the Ducks are seated at number 5. Yeah, the format works for the Big Ten. The playoff cannot expand or evolve its format without the Big Ten's agreement, because Petitti's conference and the SEC remain the 2 power brokers with the strongest grip on the wheel. And CFP Executive Director Rich Clark put it before this season, the Big Ten and SEC failing to align behind a playoff expansion plan would push forward the status quo of 12 teams. If Petitti's next proposal involves a 200-team bracket with 19 automatic bids for the Big Ten and 9 rounds of play-in games, then we're going to know for certain he's just running interference to realistic expansion to provoking the current format. A 5+ playoff could help the ACC and Big 12 qualify multiple teams with more frequency. BYU President C. Shane Reese told me in October, I think the best setup is 16 teams. Now, his mood is shared by many. The move to 16 should be a priority, according to SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, as he said last month. Along with creating more avenues for the ACC and Big 12, extra at-large bids would help hatch more access for the SEC secondary and tertiary tiers. What would it do for the Big 10? Zilch, the past 2 seasons anyway. The Big 10's creme de la creme is as good or better as that of any conference, including Sankey's SEC. Move beyond the Big 10's top tier, though, and into that messy middle, and the conference lacks the depth of playoff contenders housed in the SEC. So Petitti shot for that season with his auto-bid focused plan that would pre-assign the same number of automatic bids for the Big 10 as the SEC. When SEC coaches balked at that idea, the Big 10 pivoted to other far-fetched plans while refusing to take up the 5 and 11 proposal. Now, perhaps Petitti's plan started as a way to try to gain playoff access for 8 and 4 Iowa, or to simply create more TV inventory. But by now, you can see how maybe the Big 10 strategy circuitously morphed into keeping 9 and 3 Texas out, stalling expansion and preserving the field at 12 teams. That's a size and shape that works best for the Big 10.
Schifrin extends perfect record in slalom this season. From Nancy Armour of USA Today. Mikaela Shiffrin's winning streak goes on. Shiffrin won the night slalom in Courchevel, France on Tuesday, December 16th. Her 4th win in as many slalom races this season. Add in her win at the World Cup Finals in Sun Valley, Idaho in March, and she has won 5 consecutive races in her specialty discipline. It was a 105th World Cup win of her career, extending her own record. The win increases her leads in both the overall and slalom season standings. I'm just pushing. I don't know, and I'm not asking questions, Shiffrin said when asked to explain her winning streak. Sometimes you've just got to take it and roll with it because these women are pushing. They're pushing like hell, so I have to push too. Paula Motzan is one of those pushing, skiing the fastest second run to move up 4 spots to 5th place. It's her 3rd top 5 finish this season. She was 8th at Copper Mountain 2.5 weeks ago. Impressive as Shiffrin's winning streak is, it's the dominance of those wins that's so remarkable, including Tuesday when she beat Switzerland's Camille Rast by 1.55 seconds. Shiffrin has won each slalom race by 1.23 seconds or more. In a sport often determined by tenths and hundredths of seconds, those are massive margins. Put another way, there was a greater margin between Shiffrin and Rast on Tuesday than between Rast and Wendy Holdner, who was 7th. If Shiffrin keeps this up, it won't be enough for her competitors simply to ski well. They'll need Shiffrin to make mistakes, and that's something she's just not doing. The track in Courchevel was nasty, rutted and icy beneath a thin covering of snow. There were 17 that did not finishes, also DNFs, in the first run, including 3 of the first 6 skiers, and another 6 in the second run. They included Albania's Lara Kulturi, who was 2nd to Shiffrin in the first 2 slaloms and 3rd in the 3rd, and contenders Lena Dor and Sarah Hector. But Shiffrin used the conditions to her advantage, rather than letting them jostle her about. Even when she did make mistakes, she was able to quickly recover rather than allowing the error to take her out of her rhythm. Ahead of the first turn, Shiffrin's team warned her that the course was picking up speed and told her to stick to her plan. She fought through the first few gates and was just 0.06 seconds ahead of the then leader Rast after the first sector. But Shiffrin settled in, looking more and more fluid the further down the course she got. By the time she crossed the finish line, Schifrin was 0.83 seconds ahead of Rast, who raised her hands in a "what can you do" gesture. Everyone on the first run made some kind of mistakes. It was just really important to be moving and very dynamic, Schifrin said. I executed that very well. That was a big separator. With such a big lead going into the second run, Schifrin just had to stay aggressive. She was slow out of the gate, but was able to find speed after the first sector. She was flying during the second half of the course, her winning streak secure. Some of it is lock in this field, Schifrin said when asked what she'll do with the break she has now before her next race. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 1:45.
Moving on to the entertainment section, and movies in particular, Francesca Scorsese explores the family business. Ralphie Aversa of USA Today writes, Francesca Scorsese is no stranger to directing. Her dad, legendary filmmaker Martin Scorsese. Typically, that takes place in her parents' living room at the holidays or in her viral TikTok videos. I always get the tree for my parents, and then I decorate it, and, they just hang out. Scorsese, 26 years of age, tells USA Today, before joking that she usually has to force her dad, who's 83, to put a few ornaments up as well. But he loves the tradition, she adds. It's one custom in the Scorsese household that has held through the years. My mom has pretty severe Parkinson's at this point, so it's sort of reached a different type of celebration, she says, of her mother, Helen Morris. It's a lot shorter, a lot calmer, less of a big thing. But, it's still really beautiful. And I love to be able to spend as much time as possible with both my parents. It's a rare experience, but very special. Scorsese was able to spend some extra time with her father this year. The filmmaker and actress see Fish Out of Water and We Are Who We Are, directed an episode of Martin Scorsese Presents The Saints, streaming now on Fox Nation. That's a series that looks at celebrated Catholic figures. Scorsese's episode focuses on Carlo Acutis, the first millennial saint. The teen died of leukemia in 2006 and was canonized in September. He's remembered for using digital media to promote his Catholic faith. This was based on a real person's life. So I felt, a huge amount of responsibility going into it, Scorsese said, of how this differed from past projects, acknowledging she felt real anxious. I wanted to be as respectful as possible and as truthful as possible. Another unusual facet of Acutis' story is that his body is on display in Assisi, Italy, where he vacationed with his family. His body was exhumed about 12 years after his death. Now, while normal decomposition had occurred, all of his organs were intact. Acutis' face and hands were reconstructed with silicone. The saint is casually dressed, and his tomb is live-streamed 24 hours a day. Scorsese visited the body, calling the experience unreal. It's quite eerie seeing him, she says. It looks just like a kid sleeping. He's wearing a tracksuit and sneakers. I was so emotional when I left. Scorsese reveals that there was a dilemma with the crew about filming Acutis' body. Ultimately, she decided against it, as, it didn't feel right. Another curveball came when Acutis' canonization, the process by which the church officially declares a saint, was delayed by the death of Pope Francis. Scorsese attended the funeral with her father. I've never experienced anything quite like that, she said. It was really beautiful, very moving. I'd met the Pope. My dad was a good friend of his, which is bizarre to say, but I met him a few times. He was a lovely guy. Scorsese's father hosts and narrates The Saints. She immediately laughs when asked about directing her father. Oh, he's very involved in everything I do, but is a protective dad and very nosy, she says. I love it. And Martin's involvement in his daughter's work won't be waning anytime soon. He's in the middle of 2 projects, a documentary about her father and his parents, and a short film based on a younger version of her mother. The later film, Adults Only, is in pre-production. Scorsese is hoping to film in Paris. As for the documentary, that was spurred by Scorsese's trip to Polizzi, Generosa, a town where her father's ancestors are from, in the Italian metropolitan of Palermo. She has access to never-before-seen footage of Martin and his parents there in the 1990s. I've sort of explored that side of my family, she said, of her father's background, and now I'm going to go to my mom's side, and I'll be very in touch with my roots in all aspects.
This is a movie review. Avatar stimulates senses, not the brain. From Brian Truitt, a columnist of USA Today. There's nothing like the first 10 minutes of an Avatar movie. It's an immediate and immersive endorphin hit, seeing a visually snazzy world of blue aliens and incredible creatures unlike anything else on screen. But then comes the other 3+ hours. Avatar, Fire and Ash, who received 2.5 rating stars and ranked PG in theaters December 19th. James Cameron's third adventure in his blockbuster sci-fi franchise is just as cool a watch as the previous films, yet also as narratively frustrating. Endless subplots, scattershot character development, and borrowed story beats backfire on Fire and Ash, although it does benefit from an unhinged but relatable villain whose presence keeps it interesting. The latest film ended with former Marine-turned-Na'vi warrior Jake Scully, played by Sam Worthington, his wife Neytiri, played by Zoe Saldana, and their family scoring a key defeat over the evil corporation military group wanting to colonize Pandora to be a new home for humanity. But the couple's eldest son dies in the battle, and loved ones are still grieving as Fire and Ash opens. Jake and company hitch a ride with the Wind Traders, a crew of Na'vi who ride jellyfishy zeppelins through the skies to take their quasi-adopted human kid Spider, played by Jack Champion, back to their clan's home. But they're suddenly attacked by the Ash People, a bunch of raiders led by their wild-eyed, face-painted leader Varang, played by Una Chaplin, and it leads to Sully family being separated, Empire Strikes Back style. Everyone's got their issues. Jake questions his place as a high-profile Na'vi champion of sorts, but also is being hunted by his former commander, cloned military man, Na'vi hybrid Quatrich, played by Stephen Lang. Neytiri hates all the things human, so she has some conflicted emotions when it comes to Spider. Teen Carey, played by Sigourney Weaver, tries and fails to commune with Aiwa, the Na'vi deity that exists in the natural elements of the planet. Meanwhile, Loak, played by Brian Dalton, is mainly concerned with helping his buddy Payakan, a young outcast of the whale-like Tulkun species. While the movie juggles all these things with varying degrees of success, the plot mainly centers on 2 supporting players. Spider, who's Quadrich's son, by the way, ends up being able to breathe Pandoran air, which is a game changer for the humans who want to take over Pandora. And Varang, who despises Aiwa for not helping when a volcano wiped out her clan's home, becomes an absolute menace when she partners up with Quaritch and the antagonistic humans. Without her, this film would be a chore to endure. Avatar movies have never been shabby to look at, and Fire and Ash combines stunning special effects with great performance, capture turns by Worthington, Saldana, and Chaplin. There's a daring rescue mission. It honestly is one of the best action sequences ever in an Avatar climatic in its splendor, catharsis, and crowd-pleasing nature. Then you look at the clock and realize there's still another hour to go. That's the thing with these movies. Yes, they are awesome, but the excessive runtimes and spaghetti on the wall storytelling hold up only for so long until there's diminishing returns. Fire and Ash brings up intriguing themes of spirituality, found family, and revenge that are lost amid the bombast. And sure, some characters are truly fleshed out and magnetic amid an expansive cast, yet with others, you've forgotten their names and don't really care to remember. Cameron's epic vibes are still strong and also all over the place. Like the others, this Avatar will probably make a gazillion dollars, maybe pick up 1 or 2 Oscars, and then go back on the top culture shelf until it's time for number 4. That status quo will work for some but not for all. Because 10 minutes of cinematic bliss is fine for a theme park ride, less so for not 197 minutes in a movie theater seat. What is the length of Avatar 3? Avatar Fire and Ash, starring Sam Worthington and Zoe Saldana, has a runtime of 3 hours and 17 minutes. The James Cameron sci-fi adventure is rated PG-13 by the Motion Picture Association for intense sequences of violence and action, bloody images, some strong language, thematic elements, and suggestive material.
That sounds like our last Thanksgiving.
You've been listening to a reading of USA Today for Thursday, December 18th on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We read USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call 821-5555. Your readers today have been
Ken Trost
and Jim Duffy.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or